Whoa!
Welcome, everyone. You're probably already wondering, this is not JJ's voice. In fact, it's not. It's the real Ginge. Will be your host today. As you probably all heard the past month when I missed some of our recordings, JJ just he wanted to shit all over some of the picks that I had.
He did.
And
He said they weren't real movies, Mattson.
and you know, my feelings don't get hurt that often, but when JJ comes after me, actions have to happen. I know exactly where JJ lives. We are good friends, and he's not here. So I don't I'm gonna let you guys interpret what happened. We're gonna run this show without him, and I don't know if he's coming back. It's to be determined. We'll see if we need him. I don't know. Yeah, we'll let the audience interpret it as they will. But uh, I'm joined by my co-host Alec.
Let's get it, Mattson. Let's get
Yeah.
it.
We have never recorded in this format before. There's certainly been when I was in semi-retirement, I missed many of these, but never have Alec and I run this by ourselves. And you know what? Maybe it'll just be better. We're gonna find out.
Twosies.
Yes. Well, the theme of this month for our Patreon listeners that got to vote on exactly what August will be is Mel Brooks. I was not as well versed in Mel Brooks, except the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I know that movie and know it really well. I dare say it's probably his most famous movie. Alec, what do you think?
Did Mel Brooks do that? I thought that was just Gene Wilder in there. Was that
Now
an
we have
actual
to
Mel
start over.
Brooks?
JJ, edit this out. Did Mel Brooks write that? Gosh dang it! Look at me already. Mel Brooks, and yeah, my problem is I've got Mel Brooks seared as Gene Wilder because some of these movies he's in these as well. I
Yeah,
screwed
okay,
that up.
okay.
All right, JJ, you can omit that and laugh at that. I already screwed up as a host. What was the last thing I was saying with that? Shoot. Oh, I'm just not going to talk about that. We'll just say. So I'll just restart. So this month we're doing Mel Brooks movies. Got to be honest, I until this point didn't really know who Mel Brooks was. I know I've seen some of his movies. We will be covering Spaceball this month. Spoiler alert there. Other than that, though, I don't know if I knew a Mel Brooks movie until we went on this tirade for the month of August. So excited to dive into it. But to kick things off for your listening pleasure, we're going to be starting with The Producers. This movie was directed in 1967. It came out, and it's an American satirical black comedy film written and directed by Mel Brooks. The film stars Zero Mostel as Max Baileystock, a failing Broadway producer, and Gene Wilder as Leo Bloom, a neurotic accountant. The plot revolves around their scheme to stage the worst Broadway musical they can find in order to defraud their investors. Their plan, as you'll find out when you watch, leaves a lot to be desired, to leave it at that. So in this film, you have Zero Mostel, Gene Wilder, Dick Shawn, Kenneth Mars, Estelle Winwood, and Christopher Hewitt. So with that, as always, we're going to deep dive into this and have a good old time talking about this film.
Love it. So this was my pick, but I'd never seen it before. I'd picked
You picked it, but I hadn't seen it
I'd-
before.
I'd heard about it. Snuff, one of our patrons, had changed his name to Max Bialystock for a while, so it was floating around
Oh,
in the
that's
front
where that
of my
came
head.
from.
But I'd always been told I should see it, and I just never got around to it. And I'll be honest, I don't know why I should have seen this movie. Like, it had very funny moments and kind of like Max Bialystock is really just a weird, kind of cool, funny character in my opinion. But I don't think I really liked it all that much. I don't know. What do you think, Mattson? First initial.
Interesting. The fact I'm surprised. I thought you were gonna like it more. You know what? So I definitely didn't dislike it. I thought there were parts that were funny to me. I will be honest. I mean, I will say this: I tried to come into this month with these films with an open mind. I really tried to not be a Debbie Downer from the beginning, and this was the first film I think I watched for our Mel Brooks movies. And I mean, overall, from my gut, I mean, it's been a little bit since I watched it. I liked it more than I thought I was going to. I could see why people enjoyed it. It definitely made me laugh at a few parts. I thought it was an interesting take on the story, especially with swindling and woo-wowing old ladies. Just some of the the things you can get away with in comedy many years ago. Just can't do the things they did then today. And sometimes I think that's a breath of fresh air to like kind of go back in a time capsule. But like overall, I didn't have like a problem with it. But I need to think more about some of these scenes. But I'm curious, Alec, like what turned you off about it? Because it was funny. There was definitely parts that
So
made me laugh.
I actually think it was a little bit of Gene Wilder, which is odd because I love Gene Wilder.
Hmm.
But I mean, you start off real strong with Max Bialystock and his whole arm war of old lady pictures, and he's shooing one in, bringing another one out, and changing up the photos to get these investments, right? And I was just cackling at that part. But for some reason, Gene Wilder is like a neurotic accountant, and just the just it's like what? And that kind of pulled me out a little bit. Because throughout the whole movie, it was just he was doing a phenomenal job at it, but I was kind of sitting there going, "Ooh, I don't know if I like this version of Gene Wilder."
Mm. Definitely different than some of the other
It's
famous
different than
films.
what he's kind of used for, but also very similar, right? He's always this out kind of landish character,
Hmm.
but this performance for me just wasn't a winner. And so I think it was actually his character that kind of turned me off a little bit.
Well, I don't think America would agree with you in the world because he received a nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Didn't win, but
Yeah, sounds about right.
I don't think our listeners are too surprised by that. Usually, Alec's opinion
I'm
is.
new to nothing new there.
I didn't know this as well that this was Mel Brooks' uh, directorial debut. So this was
Oh,
the first one where
interesting.
he kind of kicked it off and got things rolling. And then obviously some of I mean, this is in 67. So like some of the other movies we're reviewing later this month were like 20 years later. Um, that's the thing that having seen all these in the producers is no different. Like Mel Brooks just seems kind of like a quirky, weird dude. Like the way his mind works and the way he writes these things, he's he's got some. I mean, I don't know too many movies that have like 75, 80-year-old women trying to like get it on with someone a lot younger, and the wittiness and the subject matter that he takes on. He just seems unafraid to tackle comedy in the way that he wants.
Oh, 100%. I don't think there's a single Mel Brooks movie that would be made today.
I really don't. Having seen four of his like most popular, like I just
there's
yeah.
there's no way you can make a Mel Brooks movie right now based with the current social climate. But it is interesting the way he pushes the envelope, right? Because here we go, get a little bit further. The movie revolves around a Broadway production, Springtime for Hinkle. And it's funny, but it's at the same time it's a very dark kind of humor story because they're swindling their investors, trying to cash out big on a loss by making a production that it should in no way, shape, or form be profitable, but it is. And it's just the levels and kind of waves it takes you on is just kind of ridiculous, but it's something that only Mel Brooks can really do. I can't think of something
The guy
else.
that ended up playing Hitler really made me think of Robin Williams. I don't know how old Robin Williams was in 1967. Um,
6.
Yeah, like he could have been very, but the way that he had that like kind of like hippie like I don't know, just the way he talked and his comedic presence as the character. I was like, oh man, like Robin Williams could have been like if he existed in '67, like he would have been this guy even like times 10 and would have smashed a home run on that role. I really like the actor that played that character. And for our listeners that have been listening through the years, we have watched a few movies with Hitler and the Nazis in it. So I definitely chuckled during this part of the film because I'm a pretty big history nut, and I had been watching some documentaries on Nazi Germany and Hitler specifically on Netflix that recently came out, and it was pretty funny to see all the like smart player like well the players during this time period in the historical sense and the just like the complete satire that like it was this production. And I really like how they portrayed it in the audience, like the shock and awe of like you can imagine if you would I mean, World War II at that time, the time frame they were showing was not far off, and so things were still extremely raw. And it would be like the equivalent of someone doing a play about like Al Qaeda and 9/11 like 10 years later, and like it would be like, no. But then the dude that played Bin Laden was like the funniest guy on the planet. That's what I liked it to seeing this on the screen with Hitler. And I think they did a really good job showing the shock and awe and how funny it could be because it just kind of made fun of itself. But I was like, man, if I was in the audience too, I'd have been like, oh my gosh, I can't believe someone got the approval to put this out on stage.
Oh, that guy. That's actually a really good point. It reminds you of Robin Williams, Lorenzo Saint Dubois, or Dick Shawn in real life. But dude, the fact that they made his nickname LSD and he was a beatnik hippie, I mean, that's the kind of snarky humor I guess Mel Brooks is probably best known for. But I mean, I was cracking up and whenever he was on stage, just because he was funny. Got the
And
beat
when they did like
attitude.
they did the swastika circle and they pan the camera, I was like, oh man, like
They're
wow.
not holding anything back.
No, like if you tried to do something like that today, like we're not at a place anymore in humanity. Like I think you could even remotely broach something like that.
Nah, nope. Mm-mm.
Oh, that yeah, it's just super. Things like that were just really funny and over the top. And I go back to just Mel Brooks doesn't care, didn't care.
Yeah, it would. It's a little bit. Trying to think of a director right now who kind of fits that role. And I think the only one that I can maybe see being close is like Taika Waititi, Jojo Rabbit.
Oh yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think it's hard. Like, does
But it's
anyone have the creative license like people did then to just
I don't think so.
everyone's afraid of rightfully so public opinion these days because you're gonna at least back then you put it out, yeah, you'd hear things from like the newspaper critics, but there wasn't
You had to go
Twitter
see.
and
Yeah, you had to
social
go
media.
see
Yeah,
the movie. So if you didn't go see the movie, you weren't necessarily concerned about it. Um, but yeah, this was an interesting watch for me because first time watching through, and I was like, this is. It was hard to put my finger on it because I liked a lot, but I also didn't like a lot. And
well,
it
what
was
else
just
besides Gene Wilder that turned you off though? Because I thought I mean there was strong acting, I thought it was a clever plot. It's not something you see too often where you're trying to swindle and sabotage. And I mean it was predictable that it wasn't going to go well, but it was still well done enough that I didn't mind. I didn't need there to be like some twist. I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. Like it was I just thought it was fun.
yeah. I don't know, maybe it didn't not liking it's the wrong choice of words. I thought it was weird.
But is it I mean aren't all Mel Brooks films pretty
Okay,
weird?
this was really weird. Like a few of the other ones we watched this month, I was like, that's weird, funny, haha. I get it. This one, I was kind of sitting a lot of it going, what am I watching? This is what? What?
And I thought that would
So
have
it
fit.
was.
I thought that would have fit with your weird mind and approach to the world. Like you're like, oh, okay,
I
this is
am
my kind of
nothing.
crazy.
I am nothing if not inconsistent. Um, I just didn't get it, to be honest. I was sitting there watching for most of it, going, "This is odd, weird. Okay, cool. I see the connection here, there. That makes sense. Oh, now they're in prison doing the same exact thing they got thrown in prison for." But I did enjoy. I think my favorite part was Gene Wilder and just going through, and you own 20% of the show, 20% of the show, 50% of the show, 50% of the show, and if you tally it all up, it turns out to be about 600% of the show.
Yeah, Mel Brooks to me is nothing but witty. Like all the films we watch, like this one's no different. He definitely has some comedic genius there that I think is lost a little bit more in this world today. He knows what he is. He's unapologetic about it, and I wish we could have some more of this in our comedy. It even makes me think of a lot of the stand up comedians these days. Like that's almost kind of the last frontier of your ability to express some kind of really outlandish opinions and jokes, obviously. And um, I feel like Mel Brooks is basically like a stand-up comedian turned director. If we were to see that today, if you had the creative license to say, "Look, we're not going to cancel you," could you
Yeah,
imagine this came out? Like, if this was produced and came out now, like this movie would have been polarizing day one. You would have heard about, it, and you probably would have gone to see it just because you're like this or this, left or right, and yeah,
100%. I am, since you brought up comedy, I'm pretty glad to see that we have like comedies kind of making a little bit of a comeback. Like you have a kind of young core group of uh, stand-up comedians who are kind of saying "fuck it," and
yeah.
we're gonna.
It's fair you
Well,
brought that because I've started to notice that a little bit more, especially on like Netflix again. I'm like, oh, there's some like
yeah,
people are not afraid to tell the jokes that, yeah, are they technically sure slightly controversial, but it's the setting it's it in. It's comedy. It's where we need to be able to make fun of ourselves again. And I think
yeah,
to get on our soapbox right now, like obviously that's a big problem we're at in the world now. It's like you say something and everyone's on you the moment it happens. And like
immediately.
what happened to being able to make fun of yourself and laugh? Like growing up, I was a redhead. I had to learn quickly. Like I didn't need to be able to laugh at my pale skin and my gingerness, or I'm gonna take offense to it and be angry all the time.
Not gonna survive.
Yeah, and I'm gonna survive the moment. Every time I go to the beach, you're like, "Oh, you got to put on more sunscreen. Why are you wearing like a sun shirt?" Like, make fun of myself. It's a better way to live it, and we've gotten really away from that. But to your point, some of those shows are coming up again. It's like, can we have a slight renaissance? Like, can we be able to make fun of all the funny things that are out there? Because I'm LDS. We have some interesting customs. They are funny. Like JJ's a Star Wars nerd. There's things to be made fun of there
There
too.
is so much you can make fun of with Star Wars nerds.
Alec is a wannabe closet in his mind, weird psycho, not killer. We all make fun of him all the time on this show, and he accepts it. He knows he's
Mhm.
he's his own brand of crazy.
That is true. There is nothing else like me.
No, definitely not. But I think when you go back to what makes Mel Brooks, I think his comedic genius is he's good at he doesn't lean on one type of comedy too much. You've got like your slapstick and physical comedy. You've got like your parody and satire. You've got your wordplay and puns. You've even got like the fourth wall, a lot of historical references, music, like absurdity versus surrealism. To me, he blends what he does really well is he gives you many of those things in one movie. And then I think for some viewers, that can be almost it could be too much or a little too hard to follow. And maybe that's kind of what you're saying, Alec, is his style. You've got to it's complex comedy. It's not like one way. And that's what I always get on JJ about. Like some of the movies he likes the most, I feel like they're just very one track mind. And even myself, some movies I like, they're what you see is what you get, and it's the same type of comedy time and time again, which can work if it's like perfect, but a lot of times movies like that, it gets taxing at some point. You're like, all right, like I need a little bit more. And I was actually talking to Alec about Deadpool, for instance, and it sounds like even some of that can fall into this, where like Deadpool's always been about the one-liners, but sometimes is there a lot more to it than that? Or like I even think of The Boys, for instance, they relied on a lot of physical, grotesque comedy that worked for a long time, but like in this fourth season, to me, it's kind of falling on deaf eyes and ears because it's been played out. But can you add complexity?
That's true. Now that you're saying it, the well-rounded comedy where everything's kind of into one little hodgepodge mishmash, and it works as a whole, right? Because there's parts in all these movies where I was kind of sitting there going, nah, but if that's also not really my cup of comedy, then it makes sense, because there are other parts where I was like, oh my gosh, I was cracking up. So you can kind of hit multiple audiences and probably not alienate as many as you would with that solo type of comedy. Like if you hate one-liners, you're not going to see Deadpool.
Yeah.
Or you're hating every single second you're in there. But, if you're a big satire fan, right, you're going to be watching the Spaceballs and enjoy it, but you can still enjoy it with the one-liners that are in there. So that's a very good point. I hadn't thought of that before.
What type of comedy do you gravitate towards? Like if you had to pick your style, Alec, I don't even know if I'm trying to think about it for myself as I ask you.
That's a tricky one. I like the slapstick. I'm a huge slapstick fan. And then I think one-liners, if you don't overdo it. Like there's certain sections, Deadpool's a big one because it's the most recent one where I'm like, okay, yeah, I saw that coming from a mile away. You didn't need that there. Clearly, you're throwing one-liner on top of one-liner. So if it's an intelligent one-liner, I think it's great. And then satire, I'm hit or miss. It's very kind of situational, but I would say slapstick, any slapstick, I'm all about.
Satire doesn't usually hit it for me. Slapstick, I feel like if we were doing like a poll of our viewing audience, that would probably be towards the top because it's just easy. Sometimes you just do something like really funny and it's just hard not to laugh. Like when someone gets punched in the face and you weren't expecting it, like or like kicked in the balls. Yeah, it's hard not to laugh. You can appreciate that. I do like. I'm definitely an absurdity fan. Something that's like kind of rolls in the slapstick a little bit, but it's something that's like extremely over the top. Usually, when you pair those two things together, and then that's when if you can add like a great one-liner or wordplay to kind of wrap a bow on that scene that you just watched from a slapstick over the top, it just kind of makes the cake for me.
Okay. I kind of see that. So, Mattson, since you were gone for a while, I was missing out on my Mattson trivia. Do you have any? Because JJ wasn't nearly as good. He would throw out like one question that he found on Google or that he already knew, and it wasn't as entertaining as trivia time with Mattson.
Well, there's a lot of things that JJ tries to do that just kind of fall flat in their face, and
rating movies, for instance.
That's why I mean, I don't make this podcast, but I certainly need to be around, need to be involved. So I'm glad he couldn't overtake my throne on this. So, what was the original title for this film, Alec? They changed it. It became The Producers, but it was something else. I will give you a hint. You have already said the title.
I have already said the title.
Yes, we talked about this.
Springtime with Hitler.
Yes, Springtime for Hitler was the original title for this film. I think probably a good name change.
Just a little bit. I don't think it would have aged as well.
No, I don't know if the cult following would have taken off as much. And honestly, I think it would have been. At the end of the day, I feel like it would have been kind of confusing when you really think about. Yeah, like that was like a show within a show, but it wasn't really the show.
That makes sense. You'd have some people like me who'd be confused, thinking we were watching something World War II era, and it wouldn't be that at all.
Yeah, no, I think it would have made like if it would have been titled that, and you started watching, you'd be like, "Wait, why the hell was it named?" Like,
Yeah,
you could be
this
like, "I
doesn't make any
understand."
sense.
You're like, "I understand where the title technically came from, but this is not the movie." It would have been setting up for the wrong expectations.
It would kind of be like Breakfast at Tiffany's,
Yes, there you go.
where
Very yeah.
you're like Breakfast at Tiffany's. Okay, I understand what's happening. You watch the movie and you're like, no.
Right. No. Let me see. What else can I say? Oh, okay. What Academy Award did the producers win?
What Academy Award did the producers win? Best Director.
Very close. It has to do with Mel Brooks. I'm going to give you one more guess. You were
Oh,
on the
then Best Story. Best Story.
yes.
Best.
So I
Best.
mean I would, if we were playing, what was it, Family Feud, I think they would give this to you. Best original screenplay.
Okay. Okay.
I think you're close enough. So which is
I
quite
can see
impressive
that.
because this was his. I'm sure, and this is I'm sure that Mel Brooks had written movies before this, but obviously this is his first time he directed. But pretty impressive to kind of hit a home run right off the bat, right there.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Best Original Screenplay. I just looked up what came out that year. I mean, it's not really a original screenplay, but he went up against the Jungle Book,
Hmm.
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, The Taming of the Shrew.
Hmm.
So it wasn't like it was a dead year for 67 for winning Best Original Screenplay.
Well,
So kudos.
this film was also a Broadway adaptation, and it was a successful musical in 2001. How many Tony Awards did this win?
Oh, Tony Awards. 4.
Times 3 is 12.
12?
12. Apparently, it's a record-breaking amount. I mean, that's a lot.
I never would have guessed that.
Yeah, could never have. Yeah, no way.
Huh.
What was the budget for this film? And again, obviously, it was probably filmed in like 66 or
67,
it came out
66.
67, but around that time period. I'm gonna give you a hint. I'm gonna help you out. It's definitely. I'm gonna give you a range of 0 to 3 million. What would you say?
I would say 2.2.
941,000.
That makes sense.
I think that's part of. You probably think of some seeds and some choices where you're like, okay, we don't have a lot of money here. How are we going to make this work?
Well, that actually makes a lot of sense knowing that, because there was it's a lot of like specific location shoots.
Yeah,
Like they don't venture out of really the theater. Max Bialystock's office, and those are like the two big ones.
Mm-hmm. I feel like they blew all their money on the Springtime for Hitler production.
Oh, 100%. I'll tell you what else kind of got me, that I enjoyed, and this might make complete sense to you or not. You might not understand it at all, but is it Franz or Fritz?
Mm-hmm.
Who's the guy who hired him for the play? Like, his absolutely unhinged going after them. After they, and he's going through he's got the gun, he's going after him in the office. They're hiding under the desk. I was cracking up because his secretary comes in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Drops underneath the desk, asks him a question. They're talking back and forth, having a conversation. I was dying laughing, and I don't know why, but I found that to be very funny.
Oh, that part was funny. I absolutely agree with you. It's funny you mentioned Franz. The original individual cast to play that character was supposed to be Dustin Hoffman,
Oh,
but he left to for the production to start in the movie or TV show The Graduate, which apparently became a huge turning point in Dustin Hoffman's career. So could have been him.
probably a smart choice. Otherwise, you'd be stuck in Mel Brooks films for forever.
Yeah, I was like, The people that are kind of stuck in Mel Brooks' world aren't not good, but they don't do much more. I feel like they're kind of just like,
Yeah,
okay,
it's
yeah,
like being stuck in Adam Sandler's crew.
yeah. You're like, okay.
That's it. That
Um,
you peaked.
in this film, as we saw, since it's kind of the beginning of Mel Brooks directing, he didn't really act, obviously, in this film. The others that we see do, but he did give a cameo in this film. Do you remember his not his one liner, but his like a very short phrase that he gave? It is memorable, and it was in the play. It's very catchy. Once I say it, you'll be like, I remember that being said.
I don't remember it. What was it?
Don't be stupid, be a smarty. Come and join the Nazi party.
Yep.
And as we know, Mel Brooks being who Mel Brooks is, he was probably like, who better to say this than me? Like, I
Yeah.
wrote it. I want to say the clever line.
That, or he's probably also like, I'm gonna take all the risk on this one.
And this is Mel Brooks. Has Mel Brooks passed away?
Yeah.
I'm assuming so.
Yeah.
When I think of, I know for our audience that's listened to us and how much I hated Beetlejuice, I know that they're redoing it. Did Mel Brooks do Beetlejuice, the one that we watched? I don't think so, right?
I don't think he was involved in
I feel
Beetlejuice.
like, well, no, because that was James Cameron, right?
Yes. I want to say yes.
I feel like Mel Brooks could have been perfect for like Beetlejuice.
Oh, yeah.
His brand of weird would have been like right there. Maybe it would have been as like weird color wise and whatnot compared to the other individual. But I feel like I just
Yeah,
thought it
Michael
was
Keaton is actual Beetlejuice. Tim Burton directed it.
that's it, but not James Cameron. Tim Burton. Tim Burton's weird too. But if you, what if I'm thinking if Mel Brooks and Tim Burton co-produced a movie? I don't know how it, it might be unwatchable.
It would
Weird
be way too weird.
to just step into an alternative universe.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, that concludes our trivia for this film, but I think we have learned quite a significant amount about this film. I think it was fun to kind of kick off our Mel Brooks month to talk about the first film that he directed and kind of see the success. And as we will go through the rest of this month, more about the other movies that he's done and kind of just get into the genius of his mind and um, genius. I guess that's one word for it. He is.
Mad genius.
Yeah, maybe more like maybe more
Couple
like
screws loose up there.
maybe more like mad genius. But I think we're at that time, Alec, where let's rate this bad boy.
Let's do it. I'll kick us off since
yeah,
it was my pick.
I forgot. Yes, this was your pick that you had not seen. Pick.
So yeah, I hadn't seen it. I didn't like it as much as I thought I would, and I think that might be based off of kind of the everybody telling me it's like the greatest movie you've ever seen. And I went in and it wasn't the greatest movie I'd ever seen. It was funny. It got me at points. I enjoyed most of it, but there was stuff like this was probably my least favorite Gene Wilder movie I've ever seen. And so it was hard to get into that aspect of it. I think I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 2. I don't think I did again.
I am very interested for us to talk about one of the other movies we're going to watch that I had a significant problem with, and I'm curious why you like that one more than this one. But we will leave that suspense one up for our audience to be like, what is Mattson talking about? For me,
I know what Mattson's talking about.
I'm very curious if he's gonna be able to guess that movie. For me though, I think I could see myself watching this film again. I think it also helped that I'd seen the other film that I'm referencing and it didn't like one like at all. And like this kind of saved it for me. I was like, oh, like thank goodness. Like, okay, I can see why people really appreciate his directing and writing expertise. I'm gonna give it a 3. Certainly not even close to the greatest movie. I mean, when we ever, and also whenever we give 5s, I feel like it's more based off the genre and like those films. This isn't one of the best things I've ever seen, but it is a comedy that, like I said, I can appreciate a lot of the type of comedy in this movie. And I think for individuals that enjoy comedy and the different types of it, there's a lot to appreciate here. Is it a weird movie? Yeah, like but it's a Mel Brooks. Like I don't think you couldn't say weird and not put Mel Brooks and describe his movies in the same sentence. So you got to know the subject matter and what you're kind of getting into there, but it's outlandish. It's something that couldn't be done today, and I think because of that, it's kind of entertaining. It's almost like a time capsule of the way movies used to be created, and not have to worry about all the public perception. It was just, hey, you want to make it, go make it, and we'll figure the rest out after. So with that, turn it back over to Alec to round us out.
Oh, this is so nice. Happy to tell you where to find us, Mattson. Like Mattson said at the beginning of the pod, if you're just tuning in, we gave JJ das Boot. He's not recovering from back surgery and doing well. He was kicked off the podcast for some heinous comments made last month, and now Mattson and I are in complete and utter total unsupervised control. So special shout out to our patrons for this pick. Mel Brooks movies came directly from them, and I closed my window where I had their names. This is so embarrassing.
Is it though? I feel like they all deserve to wait a little longer because
that's
how special are they?
That's true. They're only the most special people.
And it gives us another opportunity to say that, JJ, while we hope you're recovering well, I mean, did we need you? I think we did it. Did it just
I don't
fine.
think we really needed him. We did a great job without him.
And JJ doesn't know comedy, so
he doesn't.
I don't even know if he needed to be around for this month.
I would say we just keep this as a twosome, and bye-bye JJ. And I can't find their Patreon names anywhere. I got logged out. But you guys know who you are, Charles, Snuff, and Rich. Special shout out to you guys for picking this Mel Brooks pick for us. Mel Brooks month and producers. So with that, I'll turn it back to our fearless Scottish leader. Irish.
I was interested to I was like, what's he gonna say back
to me? Fearless redhead, Mattson.
Love it. Well, that kind of concludes our podcast today on the producers. Thank you all for listening. Appreciate it, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye. Hasta la vista, baby.
Whoa!